The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to question the Premier particularly about the delay between his government's becoming aware of the breach and the security of this information and his government's having made the public aware that the breach had taken place. Yesterday, his minister said that the explanation for this delay was that her department had received police advice to wait on informing the public. But Police Superintendent Perrin was very clear. There was no conversation between us and the province about holding off and not telling anybody. Here's a tabled copy of his remarks. Very naturally and very reasonably, Mr. Speaker, people find the discrepancy between these two accounts to be alarming. The Premier owes the public a full explanation of this discrepancy, and I ask him to provide it.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question from the Honourable Member. Again, we discovered there was a breach on the 5th. Mr. Speaker, we identified an IP address associated with that. Mr. Speaker, we realized we looked at our system. There was actually one breach. So we know we had the identity, Mr. Speaker. We turned that over to the Halifax Regional Police. There have been ongoing conversations with our senior security people and Halifax Regional Police over a period of time about a number of discussions associated with that. In the meantime, they went to go to their service provider to identify the name. They had to go execute a search warrant to then go to the house to make the arrest, apprehend, and my hope will be that they've actually picked up the equipment that was used as part of that. So now that we've contained, Mr. Speaker, that breach, we now hopefully will be able to tell whether or not that individual shared that with any other individuals or any group of people.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Internal Services was asked Monday if the Freedom of Information site had been hacked. And the minister was asked the same question the next day, and both times her answers did not reveal the truth. On Wednesday, the reason given for this withholding of information by both the minister and the Premier was that secrecy was required to assist the police investigation. But we know now that this was not the case. Mr. Speaker, since we know that the reason for the delay was not the police case, the public is owed an explanation of what the actual real reason was. I'm asking the Premier to provide it.
The Honourable Premier.
It's exactly, Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Member is describing, Mr. Speaker. We knew we had one breach of our system. We had the IP address. We wanted to give police the opportunity to go to the service provider to get a name associated with that, execute a search warrant, and we wanted to give them the best opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to secure the equipment that was used, Mr. Speaker, to ensure whether or not that information was shared. I find it hard to believe that anyone in this House would not want to ensure that we contained that. We believe by declaring that early on would have given the perpetrator an opportunity to destroy the equipment that we believe will identify who they shared that information with.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the government's own privacy breach protocol specifies that when a breach occurs, notification should happen as soon as possible. Now, my colleague has quoted privacy lawyer David Fraser, and I want to quote some other remarks that he made. He said that anything that keeps it quiet ends up looking like a bit of a cover-up, which has, I think, a significantly negative impact on trust. I'll table a copy of his comments. The government's handling of this situation raises concerns that there may be other security breaches of which the government has not yet informed the public. Mr. Speaker, a core matter of trustworthiness is at issue here. What does the Premier say to those whose confidence in the government's word has been shaken by the way this situation has been handled?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I very much appreciate the confidence Nova Scotia have shown in our government, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to continuing to work with them, but I want to assure the Honourable Member when the breach took place, that site was brought down. We identified there had been one breach, Mr. Speaker. We had an IP address to that, Mr. Speaker. We turned that over to Halifax Regional Police. They had an opportunity to go to the service provider to identify a name attached to that IP address, which in turn allowed them to go to the court to execute a search warrant. to make sure that not only did we apprehend the individual, but we made the best chance of getting hold of the equipment that was used to identify who that was shared with. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that was in the best interest of Nova Scotians. We look forward to the police continue their investigation to ensuring that we know that we've contained this piece of information, and we're working with those Nova Scotians whose information was breached, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to make sure that we do everything we can to work with them. Thank you.